Guys, so it's been 2 days since I've been working on these projects. Basically, what I've done is I took this knife after I, put it into the oil, and it did harden pretty good. And I put it into the oven for about an hour at 400 degrees, and now it's ready to be sanded up and turned into a finished product. So first thing I'm going to do is basically just get out. I'll start with probably about 60 grit and get all this the black off, and then I'll move up from grit to grit from 60 to 80 to 100, and then so on and so forth. So let's get started. So the first thing I did notice was that the tip here did bend slightly, and so I'm gonna actually see if I can bend it back into place, because I just noticed that it's kind of bent. And no, it just breaks. Okay, so what we'll do with this is we can probably sand down this to make a new point, because you can see right there it broke. And that's the thing with doing all this kind of stuff, is that you might have deformities like that, and where it will snap. So I'll sand this down with the belt sander, and then we'll get to working on the finishing touches. All right, guys. So I fixed the tip here, and I did some cleanup with the belt grinder. Cleaned up the handle. I left this pretty rough on both sides. I'm going to clean this up right here a little bit more. And the reason I left this rough is I didn't want to risk taking too much material off of the blade itself. The handle's not as big of a deal as making sure this stays fairly consistent. So what I did here, though, was, if you can kind of see that, was I took a couple minutes to narrow or not really narrow, but to change this angle just a tad bit to where we're back to a point. And I don't typically like doing this, and the reason why is that when you use a belt grinder on a piece of metal, it heats up the metal really, really fast. And when you are making knives, you run the risk of actually basically destroying your heat treat. So I typically like to sand it mostly by hand, especially the heat treated blade, so I don't have to worry about running the risk of ruining my temper. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some sandpaper. We're going to start cleaning this up right here. We'll start with 60 grit, like I said earlier, and work our way up. And so let's get started. Alright guys, so after a little bit of thinking, I decided to use the belt grinder to get some of these, most of the blemishes off. And now that I've got most of them, I still have a couple. You guys can see right here, just kind of goes all the way like that. And then on the other side, we got some on the, hold on, come on now. Focus. Anyway, we got some more up here. Most of this I think I can get out with hand sanding, but when I was trying to sand this, I was like, there's just too much of those little oil bubbles where the air has caught on, like the air got between the oil and the blade, and that's how those are formed. And so I was like, there's just too many of those to do by hand right now. I'm gonna have to sand this down some more, and thankfully we didn't ruin the blade any. It's still pretty much perfectly where I want it. And so now we just gotta hand sand this. I'm gonna use the 60 grit again to try to get the rest of these out. Turns out that's an 80 grit belt in that sander, so we're going down a little bit, but hand sanding just doesn't have the same power as an actual power tool. Although, you know, in the end, I feel like hand sanding is a lot more accurate. So anyway, we're going to go and get this thing hand sanded properly now. So what we'll do is I'm going to sand this for a couple hours, and I'm going to pause the video here. And when you see me again, you'll probably see me about halfway through the sanding process. So hope you guys are enjoying this so far, and I'll see you in a second. Alright guys, so we are now working on getting our knife handle put on this time. So as you guys can see, I've got some paracord here, and originally I was going to do a wood handle, but then I got to looking at it, and I was looking all over the place for the for some epoxy. Turns out I don't have any more. It's all old and won't stick to anything, so I decided to just do a paracord wrap. I really wanted a paracord wrap knife for a while, so this should hopefully come out pretty good. So let's go ahead and get started. So I already got the first part of it started. You do these little knots, you flip it over, and you basically take the right over, left over the right, kind of like tying your shoes. Leave a little hole right here, make a small loop with the paracord, and then just stick that in there. It's really hard to do this under a camera. And then you just tighten. Okay. There we go. There. Okay, so should look like this right here. Should look fairly similar on the other side. Then you flip it over, and then you keep doing it. Alright guys, so here's the finished product. It looks pretty good. It came out pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with it. The blade is, I ended up sanding it down to 2000 grit sandpaper, so it's got almost a mirror finish, a perfect mirror finish. Put a little loop here, and I'm thinking about making a sheath for it, so that you can like have it maybe like on your belt, maybe, I don't know. Well, I'll figure something out. Do have a few more touch-ups. I need to sand some more of this stuff down here. But other than that, the whole thing looks really good. Let me get a kind of a close-up here. So if you look at the blade, it's almost a perfect mirror finish. You guys can see the phone right there. You can make out the word Samsung kind of on it. But there's some problems with it still. There's some minor scratches from the sanding belts that I used. You can't really see them too well. Oh, there you go. So you can kind of see them there. And on this side, you can kind of see where I had sanded at a slightly different angle here and here. So it's a little bit wavy. But overall, this one came out real nice. I'm pretty happy with it. I've got several other knives that I've done in the past. I got one in my truck right now. Here's a couple of the other ones I've done. This is the first one I successfully finished. Very tiny plunge line. And, overall, it was a good first try. And then this is the second one I did. And, yeah, it's good. It's got a deep plunge line, but I didn't really get the finish as good as it should be. And like I said, I got another one out in my truck, which has more of a rough finish. I wanted to kind of go for a rugged finish, but I'm really happy with how these guys turned out, and I hope you guys are have enjoyed this video, and hopefully you guys learned a little bit. I might do some videos over wrapping different paracord knots. I'm not the best at it, but I think I did a fairly decent job. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Be sure to like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time.